The rise of Moscow in the 14th to 16th centuries marks the establishment of the Russian state as we know it today. This period was characterized by a combination of political consolidation, military victories, and cultural developments that allowed Moscow to become the dominant power in Russia, ultimately leading to the formation of the Tsardom of Russia. 14th century, the beginning of Moscow's rise. Moscow under the Mongols' Golden Horde. At the start of the 14th century, Russia was under the control of the Mongol Empire, specifically the Golden Horde. The Mongols had invaded Russia in the early 13th century and maintained suzerainty over the Russian principalities. Moscow, a small and relatively insignificant principality in the northeastern part of Kievan Rus, began to emerge as a rising power in this period, largely due to the leadership of the Grand Princes. Ivan I Khalida, 1325 to 1340. Ivan I, also known as Ivan Khalida, Ivan Moneybags, played a key role in consolidating Moscow's power. He served as the Grand Prince of Vladimir and Moscow and gained favor with the Mongols by collecting tribute from other Russian territories. This earned Moscow significant wealth, which allowed it to build influence. The rise of Moscow's power. By the middle of the century, Moscow began to attract more people and resources, partially because of its central location, which made it a natural hub for trade and military strategy. Moscow's rulers gradually gained control over neighboring principalities, often through diplomatic means or by exploiting divisions within the Mongol-ruled lands. 15th century. Moscow's struggle for independence and consolidation. Dmitry Donskoy, 1359 to 1389. Dmitry Donskoy was the Grand Prince of Moscow who took significant steps toward independence from Mongol rule. In 1380, he led a decisive battle against the Mongols at the Battle of Kulikovo. Although the Mongols under Khan Tokhtamysh ultimately crushed Dmitry's forces in a later engagement, the battle demonstrated that Moscow was capable of resisting Mongol domination, and it elevated Dmitry's status as a leader of the Russian people. The end of the Mongol yoke. The Mongol Empire began to weaken in the late 14th century, especially after the invasion of Tamerlane in the 1390s. Moscow took advantage of this decline. Dmitry's successors, especially Vasily I, 1389 to 1425, and Vasily II, 1425 to 1462, continued efforts to weaken the Mongol control over the Russian principalities, although Mongol tribute was still being paid until the 15th century. Ivan III, the Great, 1462 to 1505. Ivan III was a pivotal figure in Moscow's rise to prominence. He effectively broke free from Mongol rule in 1480 after the standoff at the Ugra River, which is considered the symbolic end of the Mongol yoke over Russia. Ivan III also expanded Moscow's territory significantly by annexing the Novgorod Republic, 1478, which had been one of the most powerful and independent cities in Russia. Ivan III centralized the Russian state and took the title of Tsar, Emperor, in a move to distance his rule from the Mongols, and he sought to create a unified Russian state under Moscow's authority. He also built the Kremlin in Moscow, which became a symbol of Russian power. 16th century. Moscow as a powerhouse and the birth of the Tsardom. Ivan IV, Ivan the Terrible, 1547 to 1580. For the most significant figure in the 16th century was Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible. Ivan IV was the first ruler to formally adopt the title of Tsar of all Russia, marking the transformation of the Grand Duchy of Moscow into the Tsardom of Russia in 1547. His reign saw the expansion of Russian territory, especially in the east toward Siberia, through military campaigns. Ivan IV also sought to centralize power, taking control away from the nobility, the boyars, and creating a strong autocratic state. He created a special police force, the Oprichnina, which he used to suppress dissent and eliminate rivals, leading to a reign marked by both territorial growth and brutal repression. Expansion and conquest. Under Ivan IV, Moscow's influence and control grew beyond the traditional boundaries of the Rus territories. He expanded into the Volga region, conquered Kazan, 1552, and Astrakhan, 1556, and began military campaigns toward Siberia. These conquests gave Russia access to important trade routes and resources, particularly in the Caspian Sea and the Urals. Crisis at the end of Ivan's reign. However, Ivan's rule also marked a period of internal strife. His oppressive rule led to social unrest and the weakening of the nobility. He also suffered personal tragedies, including the death of his beloved wife, Anastasia Romanovna, which led him into a deepening paranoia. The Oprichnina, which initially helped him maintain control, eventually became a tool of terror, leading to widespread bloodshed and destabilization. The time of troubles, 1598 to 1613. After Ivan IV's death, Russia entered a period of instability known as the Time of Troubles, which lasted from 1598 to 1613. The death of Ivan's son, Dmitry, left no heir to the throne. This led to a series of weak rulers, famine, and internal revolts, as well as external invasions, particularly from Poland. The Romanov family eventually rose to power at the end of the Time of Troubles, with Mikhail Romanov becoming Tsar in 1613. Summary: the rise of Moscow between the 14th and 16th centuries was characterized by the gradual shift from Mongol domination to the establishment of a centralized Russian state under the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Through military victories, strategic alliances, and territorial expansion, Moscow emerged as the dominant power in Russia. Ivan III and Ivan IV played central roles in this transformation, with Ivan IV's reign marking the beginning of the Tsardom of Russia. However, the period ended with the Time of Troubles, a crisis that nearly unraveled the Russian state before the Romanov dynasty restored order.